The question's been asked in several different ways and continues to be asked. Where are we? And how do we know that we've arrived at that place or state where we're no longer in bondage to the thrall of the movement of the mind, or tied behind the farting camel, as there is a wont to say. But before telling the inevitable story, there's a question posed to you. When was the last time that you said to someone, "I go with the flow," or "I'm going with the flow"? And what has this got to do with the answer to this question? Where are we, and how do we know we've arrived at this place beyond the thrall of the movement of the mind? There's a Sufi story about a rope maker, and he had a little stall behind which there was a very humble living quarters, and he barely made a subsistence living for his family. But one day, whilst he was plying his trade, two dervishes came into his little stall, and they were transacting the purchase of a piece of rope. But in the process of the rope being prepared, the two dervishes got into conversation. Now it so happened that one of them was quite verbose, talkative, and the other was a very quiet man. Well, the rope maker could not help but overhear what was being said by the two dervishes. And one was saying to the other, "You know, life is full of possibilities. And if we're given the opportunity and we can make use of them, it is for our great benefit." Now, on hearing this, the rope maker couldn't help himself but question the dervishes about what they'd been discussing. He said, "Well, you talk about these possibilities and opportunities, but what are these opportunities that are presented to us? I'm a poor man. I hardly make a living for my family." And the first dervish, the talkative dervish, said, "Well, as it so happens, I'm a very rich man, and I have a surplus of money. So if I give you money, which would enable you to hire some more rope makers and improve your business, that would be an opportunity. How much do you think you would need to begin this enterprise?" Well, the rope maker made a quick calculation, and he told the dervish how much he foresaw that he would need, and the dervish went into his cloak and came out with a bag of gold, and as it so happened, he just had the exact amount that was needed to give to the rope maker. The rope maker was overjoyed. Thank you. How can I repay?" The dervish said, "No, not a worry. We'll come back and check on you in a couple of months' time to see how your business is faring." So the rope maker, of course, very happy about this windfall, was casting around to somewhere to put the gold coins safely, so that on the morrow he could take them out and begin the enterprise of hiring people and expanding his business. Well, as it happened, his wife had a tureen of flour, by the door of their living quarters. So the rope maker put the gold in the flower pot and left it there, believing it would be totally safe. And then, of course, they went about their business, and he slept very soundly after imagining what he was going to do with his gold. But the next morning, when he went out into the shop at the place where the tureen was, where the flower was with the gold, it was gone. He was horrified, absolutely horrified. Where is the tureen of flower that was... Oh, said his wife, I swapped it with our neighbor because I needed some henna to dye my hair, and so I swapped the tureen of flower. Oh, he said, oh, quickly go to her, and explaining what it was that was happened. Well, when his wife came back, she said, our neighbor has said that there was a passing peddler and she needed some new pots and pans, so she swapped the tureen of flour for the pots and pans with the peddler. So the gold was gone. Of course, the rope maker was totally bereft. Nothing that he could do but to go back to his business as usual. But, as was already spoken of, the two dervishes came back to see how he was faring. Well, of course, the rope maker was totally chastened and contrite, and explained the situation to the dervishes about what had happened. And the dervish said, oh, well, you know, fate is sometimes like this. Let me give you another amount of gold. No, said the rope maker. No, please, how can I? There's no way that I can repay you. Yes, insisting, said the dervish. So he gave him another quantity of gold, the same amount as had been given before. Now the rope maker, wanting to be very careful about what he did with the gold this time, he very carefully took off his turban, wrapped the gold in the turban, and that night he put it under his bed to keep it safe until the next morning when he could begin his enterprise. But during the night, a rat came out of the floor and saw this wonderful piece of cloth that could be used to make her nest. But because it was so heavy with the gold, she had to get her partner to come up, and they dragged the turban with the gold under the house. And in the next morning, when the rope maker woke up, there was no gold. Where could it be? They hunted everywhere. No robbers could come in through the night. It was under the bed. It was gone. So again, the rope maker was in a state of abject distress, but could do nothing but to go back to his business as usual. And then, of course, as had been said previously, the dervishes came back to check on how the rope maker was doing. And the whole situation was explained again. Well, said the first dervish, it seems that God does not want you to have a better life. There's nothing I can do about it. But then the second dervish, who had been quiet all along, felt inside his robe, and he said to the rope maker, well, I'm not a rich man like my friend, but I have this piece of metal. It may be of some benefit to you. So the rope maker took the piece of metal, and the dervishes went on their way. Well, the rope maker, not having any use for this piece of metal, put it on the shelf and went back to his business as usual. But that night, at midnight, there was a knock on the door, and the rope maker had already gone into a very uncomfortable, disturbed sleep because of his situation. And his wife, who was up, answered the door. And it was her neighbor who was the wife of a fisherman. And she said, "My husband has to go fishing tomorrow, but he does not have enough weights for his nets. Could you help us?" So the rope maker's wife, went in and woke him up. A very disgruntled rope maker got up, but remembered the piece of metal on the shelf and took it down and gave it to the fisherman's wife. Well, the next day, the fisherman's catch was huge, much greater than usual. And the fisherman, being so grateful, and his wife saying, "Well, that piece of metal must have brought us luck," the fisherman said, "Well, I'll give our neighbor one of our choice fish." And this is what he did. So the wife of the fisherman took over a beautiful big fish to the rope maker and his wife to thank them for giving them the piece of metal which they believed had given them luck. Well, as the rope maker's wife was gutting the fish, she found in its innards a stone, and she placed it on the table, thinking that, "Oh, I won't throw this stone away, it's nice and smooth, and I'll keep it for the children to play with." They enjoyed the delicious fish that had been given them, and the rope maker went to bed. But before the rope maker's wife went about the piece of sewing that she'd been attending to, and before she lit the lamp, she noticed that the stone was glowing so brightly that she did not need to light her lamp. So this phenomena went on for the evening. The rope maker's wife had gone to bed after she'd finished her sewing, but the next day there was a knock on her door. There was a strange, rather rich-looking woman, and the woman said, "I happened to be passing your house last night when I noticed a very unusual glow, unlike the glow of a lamp. What was that?" And the rope maker's wife told her the story. "Oh," said the woman, "let me buy the stone from you. I offer you 100 gold coins." "Oh," said the rope maker's wife, I wanted to keep this stone for my children, and I would have to consult with my husband before I could sell it to you." So the woman said, "I'll come back." So the rope maker's wife consulted with the rope maker, and he said, "Well, there must be some value to the stone if this woman wants to offer 100 gold coins for it. We better keep it." So when the woman came back, the rope maker's wife said, "No, we don't want to sell the stone." She upped the price, 500 gold coins. Well, that was a lot of money. Well, the rope maker's wife and husband thought this must be something very valuable. No, we don't want to sell it." Well, the woman went off most unhappy. But as she was walking away, she said, 1,000 gold coins. Well, this was an offer the rope maker couldn't refuse. 1,000 gold coins was like the amount that he'd lost several times before he could start his enterprise. So he sold the stone to the woman. But as she was leaving, carrying the stone very carefully, the rope maker's wife, curiosity got the better of her. Said, "Why did you pay so much money for this stone?" "Oh," said the woman, with a very satisfied look on her face, "this stone is a stone from the crown of King Solomon himself, and is of inordinate value, and brings luck to everyone who has it." And she went on her way. Well, having the 1,000 gold coins, the rope maker was able to hire 4 new rope makers, and his business bloomed. And since he was now making money, he was able to refurbish his house. And as he was pulling up the floorboards to lay down some new floorboards, there was his turban with the gold coins inside. So he had another cache of gold. He was coming to be a rich man. Well, not long afterwards, his wife came to him and said, "You know that my neighbor had exchanged the tureen of flour for some pots. Well, the peddler is outside the door. He found the gold coins and wishes to return them to us." So the rope maker said, "I have to go and thank this honest man." So he went out to the front door, and he said to the peddler, "You are an honest man, and I have had great good fortune over these last days. Please keep the gold and make of it what you will, to better your life as my life has been bettered." But just then the peddler removed the part of his turban that was covering his face to reveal the dervish that had given him the piece of metal. And the dervish said, "Ah, these words are the words of a man who knows and has passed the test that has been given him. May you live long and prosper." And in an instant, the dervish disappeared. What does this bring up for us relative to this question? Where are we? How do we know that we're no longer bound by the mind? What happens to those 3 levels of life, the nitty-gritty, the airy-fairy and transcendental, that make up the 3 dimensions of existence and movement? What happens to them in this place?
They come together.
They come together. In your life, have you discovered whether movement is taken in to stillness or stillness taken into movement? In the presence, the intense awareness, the intense ability to focus on life as it is right now, what happens to the movement?
Comes to stillness. Is coming to stillness.
Absolutely. But if we look at this experience relative to this story, where does it fit? Where do the elements of it fit? Ponder on this. Relative to the way our life moves now, the experiences that we have, the way we perceive them, and see what this story can do for us to help us to answer this question.
In every instance, the ropemaker refused to react to what had happened. He went back to his everyday existence.
Yes.
And returned to his place of stillness.
Yes.
And then events flowed and brought the benefit of that back to him.
Absolutely. 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 Absolutely so.